In five, four, three, two, one, and go.
Hello, this is Manny Ramos, your host of Rise Up, Real Issues and Stories of Every One of Us podcast. First, let me talk about who we are. I'm Manny Ramos, a board member of PNAA, a past president of the Philippine Nurses Association of Central Florida. I'm a professor of nursing at Valencia College in Orlando and an adjunct faculty at William Patterson University. With me today is my co-host, Mindy Ofiana. Mindy?
Thank you, Manny. Welcome, everyone. I am Mindy Ofiana, Legislative Committee Chair for PNAA and a corresponding secretary for PNAA Foundation, and a past president of PNA Southern California, and currently an adjunct professor at Charles R. Drew University Department of Medicine and Sciences. Manny?
Thank you, Mindy. Our guest today is Father Julian Jagudilia, is with the Order of Friars Minor and is the Executive Director of the Migrant Center of New York with the mission to empower immigrants by strengthening migrant communities, raising public awareness of the plight of migrants, and organizing advocates of immigrant rights. The Migrant Center of New York promotes and protects the rights and welfare of migrants and refugees by providing pro bono or affordable immigration legal services, education, and advocacy. Good afternoon, Father Julian. Welcome to Rise Up.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And I'm glad to be here.
Well, nice to meet you, Father Julian. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I would like to start our conversation about you. Father, I hope, if you don't mind, where were you born? Were you born in the Philippines or were you born here? And let me tell us about yourself.
Well, I was born in the Philippines and I came in my early 20s and I lived and worked in New York City before I continued my journey to the priesthood. And I joined the Friars Minor or the Franciscans here in New York City. After I was ordained, I was assigned in many states in the U.S. I've been here in New York City doing immigration work for close to 10 years now. And that's my primary ministry, the Migrant Center, as you mentioned, that helps immigrants with their legal needs and advocacy for them. And that the Migrant Center is also based here at the Church of St. Francis of Assisi that is located in Midtown Manhattan, New York City. We're actually practically half a block away from Penn Station and all major transportation routes.
So, Father Julian, would you be able to share to us what made you choose the path of priesthood?
Since I was taught by nuns in grammar school in the Philippines, and one of the things that after discerning that I want to do with my life was to serve the people, to serve the people of God, and of the many professions in life that I thought of. Priesthood became clear to me. That's where God was calling me. And since I entered the seminary in the Philippines when I was 16 and was cut off because I left and studied in a university, finished a degree and came to the U.S. to work as a lay missionary, and later on continued my journey to the priesthood, and I was ordained here in the U.S.
Father, the Migrant Center of New York was started in 1999 by Father Brian Jordan, and you have led this center since 2013. Mm-hmm. What was its motivation for establishing this center?
Our ministry flows from one of the goals that was set by the Franciscans here in the Northeast, that is to work and advocate for the rights of the poor, especially the immigrants. What Father Brian started in 2013 was an informal service that is giving advice to migrants on how they file their papers, but it was only relegated to legal services or assistance, advice on paperwork. When I resumed the ministry in 2013, I added two components, that is advocacy and education. Because I believe it's not enough to help people process their papers. That service is dedicated to those who have documents here in the U.S. What about the undocumented? What do we do for them? So we advocate for them. We advocate for their rights. We protect them when they're harassed or raided by ICE. So we advocate for their rights. We march. We go out. We advocate for them in the legislature, especially here in New York City. And on top of that, we said, well, it's not enough to just advocate and help them with their legal papers. We also need to educate the public. Why is it that we say, well, the U.S. is a country of immigrants? So what does it mean? What does it mean, and how can we, I would say, combat anti-immigrant sentiments and thinking in our society? So we're helping those who qualify for assistance. We're helping those who are without status in the U.S. And at the same time, we are educating the general public. That is, we need immigrants in this country. And if there's anything we can do to help them, we should. And of course, we're from my end and from the church's end and from the Franciscans' end, we're responding from a faith perspective.
So, Father Julian, would you say there's been a change in the last 2, 3, or 4 years related to the migrants that you've seen?
Yes, if you're talking about the present administration and the previous administration, there have been changes because of kind of like punitive laws that the previous administration put in place. But we also have to look at it in the general framework that there is a need to overhaul the immigration system in the U.S. Lawyers and experts on immigration have been calling for immigration reform. I believe we have to go into the basics and say, what does it mean? What do we mean by immigration reform? There's a lot of facets to that need to be discussed or unpacked. But the reality is there's still a lot of undocumented immigrants here in the U.S. There's a lot of Filipino undocumented immigrants here in New York City and all over the USA. But the question is, how can we help them, especially if they don't have legal status here? And by the way, I really encourage people to think in terms of people who are undocumented as opposed to people who are here illegally. By law, yes, they're here illegally, but it doesn't mean when they're here illegally that it diminishes their human dignity. So we say instead of calling them as illegals, we call them as undocumented or without status. They're already deprived of their, welfare or their well-being because they don't have papers. If we're going to strip off that another layer of their dignity, then I wonder what's left of them.
There must be some challenges and successes that you encounter in the center. And what organizations have you been working with to address issues of the undocumented or the challenges and successes of the undocumented individuals?
Previously, one of the organizations that I work with closely in advocating, especially for the undocumented, is Faith in Action. It's a national organization. And here in New York City, there's their counterpart called Faith in New York. I also worked in the past with friends of immigrants. I also work with Freedom and Justice for Immigrants, which is the immigration arm of the USCCB. I'm not getting the right name right now correctly, but they have Justice for Immigrants. Yeah, JF. That's the immigration arm of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the U.S. The challenges are, of course, sometimes human tendency, I would call that. That is, people would say, "What is there for me to take part in this?" And we also know that, in my experience, especially with the Filipinos, they're like, "Okay, I got what I want, so good luck to your work." Instead of be part of the solution. It's not because you got your immigration papers that you say goodbye to us. What about those who are undocumented? Could we do something for them? So, and of course, others are very negative about immigration. Early on in 2013, when we started the ministry, a lot of people, parishioners of ours here at St. Francis, were questioning why are you working? Why are you helping this illegal aliens? Illegal aliens. That's so heavy a term. They're not aliens by law, yes. But in the church, we don't call other people aliens. Do you call the children of God aliens? Undocumented. So I get criticized for working for immigrants, especially undocumented.
So, so how does it feel? Having to deal with this. Is safety ever an issue for you?
No.
Do you feel safe?
I feel very safe. I'm a friar. I think it goes with, without being said, as a friar, people respect you, people listen to you. But of course, there would always be challenges from people who would say, you should not help them. What are you doing? But what I do is I don't allow negativity to consume my energy. There are so many things that could be done. There are so many good things that we all can do. So let's not allow, negativity, to bug us down. Even with a group that I had a conversation last Saturday, I said, let's not allow, negative thoughts or emotions, feelings, suggestions to distract us from our main objective.
Dealing with this issues with immigration, and I know maybe it's not in your front mind that of your safety, but anti-Asian hate crimes have increased for over 300% last year.
Mm-hmm.
Examples of the cases is Michelle Go, Yan Pauma, Matrimonis, among many. What are your thoughts about this surge in anti-Asian hate crimes?
Thoughts many. I'm sure you've heard of the saying, not until something reaches home that it does not feel personal to you, right? If an experience happens to somebody that you don't know, a stranger, anybody, it doesn't affect me, so why should I be bothered? My introduction to advocacy for the Asian American Pacific Islander community, and particularly for the Filipino American community on the issue of hate crime or anti-Asian hate, was when Noel Quintana, the guy whose face was slashed, when that incident happened, it really brought this issue to heart for me, because Noel Quintana was a volunteer of the Migrant Center. Noel Quintana was the accountant at that time for the Migrant Center. So I didn't know that it happened to him 2 days after he was released from the hospital. And I got so furious, and I said, how could this happen? And of course, that was followed by the incident involving Bill Carey, who was kicked and stomped in front of a hotel, and other Asian Americans who got attacked here in New York City. So that become an introduction for me, and I got so involved, and that's why I am rallying, calling on our community leaders and organizations and say, let's come together, let's talk about this, and let's respond to this issue as one, Filipino American community. And you know what my slogan this time for the Filipinos? I'd say, you are not alone, but you cannot do this alone. So I said to them, hindi kayo nag-iisa, pero hindi mo kaya itong mag-isa. Yeah.
So, Father Julian, can you tell us then more about this group that you've been working with recently, related to your work with this rising Asian hate crimes? I understand you've been working with a group this weekend.
We just started this Saturday. The vision of this conversation is to create a loose network of Filipino American advocates against Asian hate. Actually, we came out with a working name already. We call it PNAA. It is Filipino American Network Against Asian Hate. Okay, so we started the conversation last Saturday. There were about 23 leaders representing different organizations. And we talk about the reality that we're facing. A lot of suggestions came out and what to do. We had previous conversations with the previous administration, but the nature of things here is that when you don't do a follow up, nothing will happen to those initiatives. So slowly we're moving into forming this network, wherein we're hoping the most number of Filipino organizations and individuals would support, because I don't want to see another attack on the Filipino. There are others, attacks lately that were not reported, and I think there are two things here that, number one, we have to recognize. Culturally, we don't want to call attention to ourselves, right? When you're attacked, when somebody is attacked, the first thing that the person, thinks is this: why me? Why me? Did I do something wrong? The thing is, like, you didn't do anything wrong. It is just a situation right now wherein Asian Americans are targeted. So because they said, well, something is wrong with me, I'm so ashamed that it happened to me. So what happens? They will not report. So a lot of these things happen that are not reported. But we're hoping that if we create this network and put the word out there and say, here's a network, when if something happens to you, you can plug in and report the incident, and we're hoping that we'll be able to respond to the needs of that individual. Not only advocacy, not only legally, but also what other things. For example, Noel. This happened to Noel during the pandemic. Noel was working 2 jobs. He was on his way to work that morning when it happened, right? So he got slashed. He ended up at the hospital. 2 days later, he was released. He lost his second job. Why? Because he's afraid to take the subway. We went to a rally. The former mayor was there. All the politicians were there. All big talks, all big wigs. Great. And one of them said, Noel, if you need anything, please do not hesitate to call my office. Noel called the office, and the first thing that they offered Noel was a $20 food stamp. And I said, Noel, you need more than that, $20. I can't afford to give you $20. You need more. Somebody approached Noel and started a GoFundMe project for him. And that helped him a lot because he lost his job. He applied for Access a Ride. He was denied because he can walk to the subway. I said, no, go back to them and say, you need more. Those people do not understand the trauma that a person would suffer when there's an attack. And the person will not likely take the subway again. So for them to deny him as an Access a Ride is twice, he became twice a victim of the situation. But see, that's one incident. That's one case. And if we don't unite to advocate for our people, what will happen to us? And I would say I'm calling all Filipinos and Filipino Americans, to unite and advocate for our community. Whatever your profession, your background, your age, whatever. Think of the Filipino community. And we have to understand this. You nurses, you're in the service profession. You do your best. You help people. You do this. You do that for them. And you know what? Sometimes this is a thankless ministry. Some people, forget to thank us, but that's not an issue. We have to do good for our people.
I see. Father, you mentioned something about a while ago with regards to legislation, that if it's not followed through, nothing will happen. Do you think legislation will be able to assist us, if you will, our community, to be successful with what we really actually need?
First of all, I'm not a lawyer. There are lawyers in the group, experts in the law in this group, and I pass on the ball to them, if you may, and say, help us to understand. For example, our community reacts when we say when a Filipino or Asian American and AAPI was attacked, and the law and the courts would say, well, this is not a hate crime. We get angry and say, why not? It's a Filipino, it's an Asian who was attacked. Why is it not a hate crime? And we look at the law, and we need to understand that there are reasons why we cannot call it a hate crime. And that's where our lawyers and the experts in the law would come in and explain to us. Now, because that's the law, therefore, they have to lead in that area of advocacy, to change maybe, or to do something with the law to protect us. There's a lot to be done, and there's a lot to be understood rather in these things. So, we are learning as we go along. We have to go back to what I said. Balik tayo sa sinabi ko doon. That is, we have to assure them that they are not alone and that they cannot do it alone. Because most of the time, let's take, for example, a case of an undocumented Filipino. Okay, here's a quick funny story. One day I got a phone call and said, Father Julian, and the person that on the other line was crying. Like, Father Julian, I need to see you. I said, what is it? Oh, I need something from you. So the person came and she was crying. And I said, what's wrong? Father, my roommates were threatening to have me deported. And I said, why? Well, because I told them, my situation. I said, why did you tell them in the first place about your situation? So when an undocumented person, when something happens to them, if they don't know that there's a center, to whom are they going to turn to? Or they will just be quiet. They will just, what's our term? They're going to go deeper and deeper as TNTs. Because of course you don't know who's undocumented or not. But for them, for their safety, they would rather be quiet. So when they're attacked, their response would be the same thing. Oh, it's my fault. Oh, I should be quiet. So I would say, come on, speak out, because you are not alone. Especially when there's an organization, especially when there are people that they can trust and say, this happened to me. There's a woman in California somewhere. I don't know where. She said she's in the area of the border of Nevada and California. And she's asking for help. And I don't know anybody there. So I cannot extend help to her. But if there is, there are organizations there that she can connect with, I'm sure she would feel better and say, at least, there are kababayans that I can run to or depend on.
Mm-hmm. So let me switch to another topic. There's not. It's just disheartening to hear about immigration and hate crimes. So recently I watched a vlog. It was published
Mm-hmm,
by a Filipino American LGBT, and I believe he's
mm-hmm.
also an activist who, at an early age, had to switch religion due to his unaccepting experiences he received from his community and his Catholic Church. And he expressed gratitude to have known you and to be able to help him through a journey, hopefully coming back to Catholicism. How does that feel, Father?
First of all, I think I was very explicit in that video that I was not trying to drag him back into the Catholic Church. I said in that interview that each and every one of us has to find our way to God. That all of us are in a journey, to God, to establish our relationship with God. If you find that you're going to grow in your faith as a human being, as a Roman Catholic, by all means, stick with that. If you think you're going to grow in your relationship with God as an Episcopalian, go with that. And for him, for Kalayaan, he decided to become a Buddhist. And I said to him, if for Kalayaan, if he was at the time that he was growing up, there are other people that he can talk to, and to tell him that, hey, it's okay to be gay and be Catholic. Uh, our, our sexuality should not should not define our relationship with God. And it pains me when I hear his story. I've known Kalayaan when he was working with Amnesty International. I met him there years before, but just the second time this is another time rather that we got reunited. And that's when I heard, his journey and how he became Buddhist from being Catholic. And I said, hey, you're good. You're in a good place. And especially with what he's doing now, advocating for nonviolence, in the youth society, he's great. I think I would say this. I'm hoping that young people who are struggling with their sexual orientation will find somebody that they can talk to and assure them that you're okay. Nothing is wrong with you. I had a conversation with a mother who was saying to me, Father, please help me. There's a guy here in church who comes to church here on Sundays and say, hey, Father, pray for my son. I said, why? My son is gay. I said, your son is okay. I have a mother who was saying, please do help me. I want to convert your son to what? Your son is okay. Oh, he's not okay. I said, did you raise him to be a good person? The one said, I believe so. I said, then he's okay. What are you trying to do? Especially here in the US, I said, once your child turns 18 to 21, he's now an adult. Leave him alone. Leave him to find his place in the world. I hope I answered your question.
Father Julian, I have a follow-up question on the recently formed group that you had, PNAA. So you had a meeting with these leaders and influencers of other organizations and talked about the anti-Asian hate crimes that have been going on. Can you tell us more about how, what transpired in that meeting? Perhaps like where is the direction of that group and what type of sort of conversations came out from that meeting? Like where's that group leading towards?
See, here's one of the things that I said at the beginning of our meeting. First of all, I'm inviting as many organizations as possible. You're coming to the meeting, bringing your own ideas, your own initiatives, your own plans or campaigns. And I said, many of these organizations have things in place already. For example, PNAA. I saw your position paper. It was great. You've done your work already. So why don't bring that, the initiative into the group for us to support it and collaborate and work with you? Other organizations are just beginning, So first of all, I was calling the gifts from the community to come together, share it, and support and collaborate with one another. So that was great. There's so many ideas. Rachel Campo, who represented NAFA, had a meeting with the mayor today, mayor of New York City, Mayor Eric Adams. And Adams was very receptive, So Rachel presented the output of our conversation last Saturday. We had a one pager. What are the immediate responses that we need to do? What are the long terms that we plan to do? So the mayor was receptive, and because of that, we're going to have a follow-up conversation with him. From our side, from PANA and other organizations, to talk to him and say, this is what we would like to do for the safety and well-being of the Filipino American community. I cannot tell you the specifics now. If you want, I can share it with you later. But there are a lot of things there. One of the things that we would like to do would be to organize a town hall meeting with the mayor and the police and our government representatives. I believe that we need to involve our consulate here on this issue also, especially when it involves an undocumented person. Yeah. So another thing also is like we're thinking of a system of reporting. When somebody gets hurt, attacked, or whatever happens to them, there's a number for them to call. Yes, Mindy.
So I'm sorry. I understand that the impact that this organization is still pretty much vague, if you will, for the lack of a better term. But in addition to the logistics or systems, processes that you have to build, what do you think would be what would be the most impact? Would this organization assist us as an immigrant or an undocumented individual?
We will not be able to measure the impact of this until a structure is in place. I think one of the indicators that it will have an impact if the most number of Filipino American organizations will be with us on this initiative. Another indicator for me would be when people will start reporting, coming out and say this happened to me. The third would be when we can have a needs assessment and Filipino Americans would say, this is what we need to keep our community safe. Because there are so many organizations here in New York City. It's a question of uniting them, rallying them together for a common cause. And I think anti-Asian hate or anti-Asian crime or crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islander have been at the forefront of the minds of a lot of people. Because when I said, what do you think? We never run out of reactions, to what is happening around us now. Yeah.
I just have a follow-up question, Father. Do you think this should be nationwide, not just in New York City, but actually?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. We had a representative from Philadelphia. We have people from New Jersey who join us, and we want we don't know how to do it now or how to proceed, but we hope to have a nationwide link If PANA can be a nationwide exchange and link among Filipinos on this particular issue, that would be great. Because I know that you guys there in California also face the same issue. In Florida, I'm sure there are. Yeah, I mean, it's just a question of linking, and sharing resources. Thinking of a campaign to protect ourselves. Even I myself, got attacked during at the height of the pandemic. Someone said to me, "Go back to Asia, go back to China." I said to the person, "Excuse me, I'm not from China." A homeless person showed me to an incoming car. So it was like I was coming from a dinner with Filipino friends. And it was summertime. I was coming back to the church, and a homeless person showed me towards an incoming car. Luckily, the car was able to stop. But what I did is this: I followed him. I followed him to Penn Station, and when I saw the police, I had him arrested.
So, Father Julian, what is your message to other groups who are not involved yet in this newly formed advocacy group that you have, the PANA? What would be your message to them?
I would like to extend the invitation to them to be part, to join, participate, and advocate. And I think it's going to bring us back again to my slogan early on. That is, you are not alone, and you cannot do this alone. The more people, the more Filipino American leaders and organizations and community influencers that will join us, the better. Not only in New York City, but also in other states and hopefully nationwide. The idea is we're going to link. Now, we're linking. We're not absorbing any organization so much so that they will lose their identity. No, you're just linking with us. And hopefully we can support each other in our initiatives, in our campaigns, and in the way that we dream of protecting our Filipino American community.
Father, any last comments that we have not spoken about or you haven't mentioned to our viewers or listeners?
We should unite. We should be together in this. Let's do away with our Filipino crab mentality, which is not good. Always think positive. Always think of what is good for the Filipino community. Anything that's negative, anything that would hold us back is not good. Always think for the good, for the common good of the Filipino American community. And we can only achieve that together, because nobody will be able to do this alone. Thank you.
Uniting, linking together, and supporting each other. You are not alone. You cannot do this alone. And that is all that we have for this episode. I want to thank our guest, Father Julian, my co-host, Mindy Ofiana, and our director and producer, Rodney Cajudo. Carol Robles, PNAA Chair for Communications and Marketing, our advisor, PNAA Foundation President, Nancy Hoff, and our executive producers, PNAA President, Dr. Mary Joy Garcia-Dia, and Executive Director, Carmina Bautista. Join us every Wednesday here on Rise Up. Until then, keep on rising. See you next week. This publication was made possible by Cooperative Agreement CDC RFA IP 21-2106 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Its contents are solely the responsibility of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of CDC HHS.